Good evening, everyone. Anthony Sikowski. I work with the Department of Land Use in Newcastle County. I'm going to be your facilitator this evening. And I think our group is small enough that we could probably go around and do a real quick intro, just, general name, generally where area you're from, and if you're associated this evening with any organization. So feel free to, unmute yourself and we can just go through real quick. We can start with, is it Clem?
Yeah, I'm a resident of Delaware as of July 1, 2018. I'm active in various environmental groups and take a strong interest in climate and energy policy.
Excellent, thank you so much. Steve?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Steve Griffith. I'm a, I guess, 27-year resident, something like that, of Delaware and Newcastle County. I live in the Glasgow area in Adams Run. Just a private citizen, concerned about preserving open space and habitat and climate change, and what appears to me to be a lot of problems with some of the zoning around here, and that's my introduction. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Steve. And real quick, we are recording the individual breakout rooms also, so I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. Alec?
Yeah, so I'm Alec Davis. I am a planner here at Newcastle County. I will be just taking some notes and making sure things that you say in this breakout are taken down for the plan and all that. And I'm a born and raised Newcastle County resident, and look forward to discussing all the issues and questions you guys have today.
Great, thank you. Joan?
Hi, I'm Joan Wheeler, and I also live in Adams Run. Hi, Steve. And I am here because I'm very concerned about this explosive growth of housing developments that are going everywhere. And I'm not sure that there seems to be any rhyme or reason, especially if the jobs are going down. Why are we having so many high cost houses being built? So I also am very concerned that I don't see in the comprehensive plan keeping the critical nature areas preserved. And that's probably my biggest concern there. So thank you for hosting this.
Sure. Pam?
Hi, Pam Scott. I'm here on behalf of the Committee of 100, and our goal is to promote responsible economic development in the state of Delaware.
Thanks, Pam. Marissa?
Hello, my name is Marissa. I live in Smyrna, Delaware, but I'm a senior at the University of Delaware, so I live also in Newark for half the year. I'm here just like kind of as a resident. I also work for the Delaware Nature Society's Clean Water Campaign as a grassroots organizer, and I do other diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice work with them as well. So I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. And I guess it would be Jerry.
Hi, my name is Jerry Hush. I'm new to Delaware. I just moved to Wilmington in January. I'm a sociologist with a specialty in urban development. Most of my work, though, has been overseas with the UN. So I'm very interested in learning how decisions are being made in Delaware. The issues are global, but it's always, what do you build on what land and who owns it and whose decisions are being brought to bear.
Tyler?
Just a private citizen, born and raised in Delaware, live in Middletown. We just recently moved outside of the town limits because development in Middletown is just probably the fastest in the area. And of course, the second that we move to 2 acres out in the middle of nowhere, a land use sign pops up for another neighborhood. It's just too much. It's just too much. There's not infrastructure down here to support it, and they just keep going. So just a concerned citizen.
Yeah, thanks for attending this evening. Robert or Bob?
Hello, I'm Bob Weiner. Support compact transit-oriented mixed-use development that gives people an option to live, shop, work, and play where they live, and not be a hostage to an automobile, to use areas that have investment for infrastructure to max utilization, recognizing that there are population projections through the state that we have to plan growth accordingly to, and preserving open space, of course, they're not mutually exclusive. Economic development, social equity are one and the same.
Dan?
Yes, resident in Delaware for 30 years, Middletown, and I'm same thing. I'm concerned about all the developments blowing up everywhere. I feel like we have a Bayberry popping up. Seems like almost every other week. So.
Chris?
Yeah, I've been in Back Creek. I'm a Middletown since '97, and again concerned about the stuff going up off of Churchtown Road and the Carter Farm, and everywhere else too. But that's where I'm not personally interested.
Good. Henry?
Henry Miller. I live on McCoy Road, just north of the Cow in Bear, Delaware. Been a lifelong resident of Delaware. Same concerns: unwise development, open space preservation, zoning issues with suburban uses on zoning. First started getting into this about 2 years ago when they popped a drug rehabilitation, basically drug prison on my corner. Thank you.
Teresa?
Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Lord. I actually live out of state, but I work in the Churchman's Crossing area for an engineering firm. So I'm actually here more so just to listen in and see what everyone's thoughts and opinions are. I do work for a transportation engineering firm, so some of these topics might eventually be carried over in my direction.
No, that's great. Yeah, thanks for your attendance. And then we have someone who's just titled under an iPhone. I don't have a name with it, but.
That's probably me.
Okay, there you are.
Hi, I'm Ann. I am a member of Friends of Frenchtown Woods and also a resident of Adams Run. Very concerned about the scope of S zoning, sort of along the lines of what the last person said. It kind of covers everything and anything. Also about by right, no matter what the plan is, it could be the greatest plan in the world, but I think applying it in the sense that you meet the code, okay, you have the right, is a little troublesome because that assumes that all S zones or all whatever zones are the same and all buildings are the same. I think there needs to be a little more of a judicious weighing and measuring of what building is going in what area. And finally, along those lines, specifically in terms of conservation and preservation, not just one development at a time with their own little conserved area, but really thinking of connected, conservation in terms of how wildlife uses it, how the terrain is constructed, that sort of thing, and weighing and measuring that relative to the terrain, how it's constructed, what its characteristics are, relative to how you zone in the area.
Thank you. Dora. Ms. Williams? Maybe we could jump back to you. And then someone just with the initial D.
I'm sorry, did you say something?
Hey, hi, Dora. This is Anthony Sikowski. Yeah, we were just kind of going around the virtual room here and just doing very quick introductions before we jump into our exercises.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm so sorry. I've got grandkids and everybody over this evening, so I was a little late and also had another meeting to go to on Route 9, our Route 9 Monitoring Committee meeting. So I apologize for being late. And to make this very short, the young lady that spoke before me, she spoke right out of my heart. And I didn't get her name, but she talked about by right, by law, that's what I call it. And so and open spaces and preservation for the wildlife. And she spoke right out of my heart. So she said everything I probably would have said. So thank you.
There's brought up just the initial D.
Dora.
Oh, no, another name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, there's another name with just the letter D. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And then we also have a phone number, just a phone number up there if they want to unmute.
613.
The last digits are 8443. If not, we can move on. We'll all have an opportunity to continue to participate throughout the exercise we're going to do. All right, so I'll go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. And let's see. Hopefully this works smoothly. Can everybody see the kind of the map that Andrea had up earlier, or and Jennifer was sharing a little bit earlier?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
seeing the map.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, so what we want to do is, this is one of the two exercises that we'll be just kind of walking through this evening. And Alec is going to post a link to this in the chat. However, also following this meeting, tomorrow you'll be sent either an email, probably just an email, but it'll include the link to this, to kind of this visual survey, this map, and also to another survey where you'll have an opportunity to kind of walk through these exercises on your own. So tonight, just kind of, we're looking at this more of a group discussion, kind of interaction with each other. You certainly to welcome or to open it up on your own computer and go through. However, we'd encourage you to kind of have more of a conversation in this group setting, and then take some time on your own to run through it. Because what's important to note is once you start the survey, which is our second exercise, you have to complete it and to save it. You can't go into it and do part of it and close it and then go back in. If you were to go back in, then it's not going to save your results. So just keep that in mind when you do the survey, to block out a little bit of time that you can walk through it and complete it completely and submit it. With the map exercise, the way this is going to work is Alec in the background will have a map open, the same map. And as we kind of go through these discussions, he's going to put some pins on specific areas that we're talking about. And then also he's going to keep track of notes. In addition to, we're recording this so we can go back and revisit, if we feel like we missed something. So we're going to have that exercise with our group and document that part of it. In addition, that all of you and anybody that that wants to, and the county can go in and complete this exercise on their own through the link. It will be on our website, so the more people we have go through and do this, the better. So if you want to help us cross promote, that would be great, so we can get more people than the folks that just had signed up or had the opportunity to participate this evening. So we'll go ahead and get right into it a little bit here. Let me try to maximize the map size a little bit. So as Jennifer, our kind of overall facilitator this evening, kind of outlined that there's certain areas highlighted on the map, talks about different study areas and municipalities. And then there's also these highlighted areas that are not currently part of any community area master plans that we anticipate either seeing some type or level of growth and or maybe just idea for some redevelopment or infill or something to that effect. Not necessarily significant changes. Certainly could be just residential growth, or it could be a combination of like a mixed use type community, focused residential, Main Street corridor improvements, things like that, or even just redevelopment. So we wanted to get into kind of that conversation a little bit, and I'll pose some questions here, but certainly I feel free to unmute, kind of jump right in. I can kind of zoom in and out of the map as directed here. And then if you need to or want to reference this, just let me know. But there's kind of an outline. Is that, Alec, did it show a different page here? Or did it show
Yeah, we're seeing the mixed residential
Okay, excellent
stuff.
Yeah, so if you need me to toggle back and forth with this, let me know. It's just helps a visual of kind of maybe what we're calling mixed residential, which is primarily residential, maybe some community amenities versus town center, Main Street type, or an actual areas that are focused on job growth. So let me go back to the map here. So just in general, I'll throw a couple questions out and feel free to anybody wants to jump in, but where do you think that growth should occur or not occur? We can look at specific areas and then we'll have Alec kind of follow along, and feel free to jump right in.
Actually, can I jump in? This is Joan.
Sure. Yeah.
I noticed that you have the Glasgow Avenue area in purple, but I was on, and that is scheduled to have a major road change. And as a part of that, there's also existing plans to create one area to be sort of I don't know what the term is, like a little town area. So I thought that the Glasgow area already had some sort of plan.
Town center, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great comment, Joan. So just a few years ago, Will Mapco, our metropolitan planning partner, along with DelDOT and the county, did a performance study on the Glasgow Avenue area. So that's kind of the original area of 896 cutting through. And so, yeah, with that, a plan did come out of it, and it was looking at trying to, how would, if development were to change or occur, like what would be the interest of the community in that area and what they would want to see. And there are road changes that I understand that would come out, including some roundabouts at the, and don't quote me, but I believe it was down toward Country Road in Glasgow Avenue.
Old County.
County Road, yes, County Road, where it would hopefully create some traffic calming measures, right? In
But
addition to
a little closer to 40 though, 40 and 896, there's a major intersection improvement as well.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, as you go toward the larger kind of the main corridor, 896 and 40, as you mentioned, there is I guess they would describe it as like a flyover where it's no longer going to be a signalized intersection. Right. They're looking at a crossover in that area, and how that impacts the area and traffic and the park there, and a very popular park, in fact. So yeah, hopefully so safer overall.
There's like 4 major developments, like Glasgow Commons, I think is what Joan and you were referring to. And that's already right in a fairly advanced stage as far as approval and everything goes.
The plan is recorded for that already.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like development's already like happening, and the infrastructure is already like insubstantial. Like Old County Road had a major capital improvement, $6 million suggested for it in 2005 that were never done. And now the Harmony at Glasgow project is approved, up and running. Glasgow Commons is approved, up and running. The development on Fraser and Frenchtown is up and running. Those are all within 1.5 miles, 2 miles of the particular intersection that you're talking about. And then at the end of 213 in Maryland, there's another major development. So sort of, I think for some people, like this theoretical discussion that you're talking about in the future is a material reality for us now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And there's a lot of critical natural area already designated by the state as important old Delaware woodlands that's just sitting here with an S zoning. And, you know, so factoring that in, I think would be very important to any potential plan in a real, present and material kind of way.
So I guess that's why I'm sort of wondering, what input do we have to 2050 when we're fighting all of this stuff now?
I think part of maybe the discussion is that we anticipate that there is growth, and some of these things, some are approved, some are there's still vacant parcels along the way, and certainly, like you look at like something like People's Plaza, right, which has kind of an older model retail center. So is there opportunity for something to occur that's different there, right? Maybe it stays that way. Maybe it incorporates residential, which would, trips or.
No.
May I make a point?
Sure.
This is Glenn Dinsmore. I have a rather jaundiced, skeptical perspective on the real estate development world. And what I would say is this, that I'm going to guess that most real estate developers in the state of Delaware are probably private companies. They're smaller companies. They're not publicly held. They're not traded on stock exchanges. And they're more focused probably on the near term and making money in the near term. And they're less influenced by what large owners of stock may be pushing with respect to large companies like the big owners of Exxon stock trying to influence the board of directors of Exxon. And my point is that I think that in all the issues that we might discuss here, that I encourage people to think about points of leverage with respect to how the private marketplace works, and to recognize that the large lenders that are publicly owned and the large insurance companies that are publicly owned, traded in the markets, these are companies that are becoming subject to the influence of people concerned with the survival of humanity, the survival of society, and highly concerned with climate financial risks. And so I encourage everyone, as you think about the issues that concern you, to recognize that our point of leverage is not just with Newcastle County or the state of Delaware or this municipality or that county, but to recognize that we actually collectively may be able to influence the behavior of, say, Chubb, which has a big office over just off 202. We may have more influence over Chubb and its casualty insurance policies than we may have over Newcastle County. And so this is something that interests me a great deal as to where is the leverage to truly influence behavior and behavior where, in my opinion, the real estate development world has been so used to being able to, in effect, impose the costs of their decisions on others, and they profit and they walk away from their profits, but they don't bear the costs like you and I and other taxpayers may associated with what they're doing. So I'll leave it at that.
No, I appreciate the comments, Colin. Jerry, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, jump right in.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate being able to speak as I'm new to Delaware, but from an outsider coming into Delaware, one of the things that I'm struck by is I think we need more discussion about what does it actually mean when you talk about development. So the visuals that you offered, the 3 scenarios for me, the architectural design models and the way in which the aesthetic is being introduced looks to me very traditional. I think it's important that you incorporate into any planning various other discussions about kind of technologies. I mean, I keep hearing about the roads and the surfaces and all this kind of stuff, but at the same time, I think that one of the things that needs to be incorporated into planning is better use of the infrastructure that you currently have. I find Delaware very car-centric, and I think that's one of the critical issues as you plan for the future, is to redefine people's use patterns. And unless you actually change and have a really good public transportation system that has places where you can wait, that you don't sit in the sun, and that really focuses on the user versus the people who are doing the building, I think you're going to be making very similar mistakes that have happened in other parts of the country. I think, and I mean this very clearly, that the three options that you gave with those visual images, I did not see anything different in terms of architectural design, use of land, use of natural resources, water runoff, the whole kind of thing. So what I'm struck by is that these conversations remind me a little bit of stuff that we've done for the last 30 years. And I think it's very important to bring in a completely different reconceptualization of the use of space. It's not just putting in other, mixed land use. That sounds like the 80s to me. But what does that actually mean in terms of water runoff? In other words, I think there needs to be much more depth understanding of what is actually being proposed. Thank you.
Yes, hello. I'm Henry Miller. I want to give a little story. I live right down by your C&D Wildlife Canal area here. We have 5-acre lots on the area I'm around. We just had a development go through on Tuesday that is on 70 acres there that is bordered by that canal wildlife area on 3 sides. They're going to put 40 houses. We all have septic systems down here. No sewer is going to be run here. It's level 4 investment area where Delaware's not going. They would have tried to preserve it. Of course, they probably tried to preserve it 10, 15 years ago, back before if we want to preserve things, we got to pay up. I mean, it's expensive to be green.
Yeah, Henry, the point you're making is one of our questions coming up, and when we go into the survey discussion about the trade-offs, kind of, right? And so that's as you had indicated, right? It's preservation.
I want to talk about the S zoning and the by right and all that, because it got zoned S, I guess, somehow or another when we went to the UDC codes. Everything else around it was a format. We are now NC 40. They are going to build 40 houses on 70 acres, which means 38 acres is open space, which, I mean, that's what we do now, is half the development goes to open space. So, but the lots that they're going to build on are less than 3/4 of an acre, where everything around is on 2 to 5 acres here. I mean, it doesn't fit in with the neighborhood, but by right, it meets the code. Newcastle County wants to try basically cut septic systems out. They have a big pipe dream. I used to put septic systems in. I put them in for 30 years. Properly maintained, they do is just as good as your sewer systems. Wilmington, we still have cities that still have combination sewers, some of the biggest polluters out there. I mean, we really have to, if you want to do this, get serious about things. There's a place there that is lost forever, really. I mean, it was bordered 3 sides by the canal. I understand the family that owns the property, they have rights too. That's their job to get the most out of their property. I have no ill will toward them, but we as a society really, really, really need to think. And the process was terrible. A sign went up. We went to a planning board meeting.
Henry, we're going to move on from a parcel specific discussion because we're trying to have a overall kind of.
Well, I was trying to tell you about the whole process, but
Okay, yeah, maybe if we have time later, but we're trying to, have a kind of our discussion on areas of growth and appropriate areas for growth and all, and not necessarily the processing system, but I appreciate it. Any other areas we wanted to discuss? I know a lot of you kind of represent areas south of the canal, and you had indicated that your concerns with growth in that area, and similar to items that Henry had brought up. There's areas that are in the Southern Newcastle County plan that are going to be outlined as kind of growth areas where sewer is designated, and other areas for preservation to try to capture. Instead of sprawling type development uncontrolled without adequate infrastructure, but more of a controlled scenario.
I think Henry hit it on, was going down at least the path that I was considering on near Bad Creek. And that the way the houses are going in now, they're on very small lots. They're either a combination townhomes, apartments, or half-acre single-family homes. They're jamming them in as tight as they can. It doesn't fit with the type of communities in that general area already. I mean, I'm okay with growth and adding additional housing, but I feel like you have to keep the same feel of the neighborhoods. We're cramming in a Bayberry and then townhomes and again apartments right next to 1 acre and 1.5 acre lots. It doesn't flow, and then there's already traffic issues, and then there's no plans to expand any of these roads. It's just gonna lead to more congestion, and then again the schools, and then again we have talking about public transportation. There's no way of getting from there to the grocery store, which might be a 10-15 minute drive to get to someplace in Middletown. So then where they build more grocery stores now closer in our backyard as well.
Any comments specific to the Churchman's Crossing area? Are people familiar with that area, and kind of there's an active plan in progress that kind of talks a little bit more about how appropriate density might get to the point where transit is used more, redevelopment, job growth centers, things like that.
Yeah, Henry again. Churchman's Crossing, you're talking up there like where the old Cavaliers Country Club golf course was?
Yeah, that's kind of the easterly extent, and then over toward Delaware Park, probably to the west, and then which would encompass the kind of the mall and the Christiana Care, JP Morgan, all those areas.
Right there, right. That basically a commercial, commercial, more office type building type stuff, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I notice you guys have a ordinance coming up about taking those commercial type residential office things and being allowed to use that as a warehouse zoning now, that they're going to basically swap that commercial residential office to where you're going to be able to have warehousing there now. Only problem I have with the warehousing is you're going to be ending up with warehouses against residential areas. Most warehouses are 24/7, 365 days a year. I understand a lot of as a matter of fact, I know a lot of the tractor and trailers don't have the backup alarms, but a lot of the forklifts and different things. And I know for myself, I was in excavating. We plowed snow at these warehouses and things. When you go out and push snow all night long, you get a lot of complaints about backup alarms from residents that are trying to sleep right there up against all these zoning things. I mean, I'm not sure if that's proper foresight ahead of looking, residences should be separated by that type of stuff by something. That's it.
That's a good point. The time's
Just
kind of
to-
moving along.
Just to follow up on Mr.
Oh, sure,
Miller's
go ahead.
comment.
Oh, go ahead, Pam.
I do, in response to the ordinance that's being considered, there are a number of restrictions in that ordinance. So it is not a wholesale change to permit warehousing in the commercial regional area. There are a number of requirements that have to be met, such that the number of sites that could actually qualify for that are somewhat limited.
Yeah, that's correct. It's there's a minimum acreage of 40 acres, and another standard is the site had to have been previously developed. So you're not going to see a greenfield type development convert to that use as a result of the zoning, as a result of the ordinance that's in now. But yeah, and the other is there's some additional requirements, as Henry pointed out, important about screening and buffering any proximity to residential.
Right, and taking into consideration noise, specifically noise issues, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's correct.
Now, I can talk. I think I got, go ahead. Hello, hi.
Hi, Dora.
Hi. I have my daughter here. Everybody said everything that I would have said, but she wants to add to what the last two people said. So she's going to take my spot. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Andrea Williams. How are you guys?
Good evening.
Good. I was just listening, and I always listen to my mom's meetings and over here. Personally, I have been impacted by the zoning issue and separating commercial and residential. For instance, my house has been built way before they built the storages, which is right behind my home. And I talked to all the people who were original owners in the neighborhood. It floods all the way up the street because they built the storages, and now all of their piping and all of their storages come towards our neighborhood. And that's the way they ran the piping. And I've had DelDOT out there. I've had Newcastle County. I called DUNRAD because I smelled a lot of different stuff out there. When it rains, you can actually put a boat in the water and paddle away. Not just that, the noise. They are, I don't know, living in these places or what, but they race there on the weekends with their motorcycles and their cars. And I have a baby, and when he was a newborn, like I couldn't get any sleep because they were constantly, I had to call the police department. I'm like, it's 3 a.m. I have a 3-month-old baby, and it's outrageous. So I totally agree. Just to piggyback off of what you guys saying, from my personal experience, it's been, I love the neighborhood. I love my house. It was very convenient because it was close to my mom, not, very far away, but that storage unit and all the commercial sites back there just blow my mind.
No, yeah, thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
So, since we're kind of running through time pretty quickly here, what I'm going to do is remind everyone that you're going to receive a link to this map, so you'll have an opportunity to go in and provide pinpoints on your own, like in specific areas, and provide discussion, and which will be incorporated. But for now, we're going to jump over to the.
Hello.
For a second.
No. You on the map, they just want to.
Let me just share a screen. Okay. All right, so we should have a change of screen here. Can everybody see that okay? So it should say NCC
Yes.
2050? Okay.
Yes.
So there's I believe there's 7 breakout groups this evening. So they had asked us, so instead of everybody starting on strategy 1, they anticipate that we're probably not going to get through the 6 or 7 strategies as a group tonight. So once again, it's important that when you get the link, they go in and complete this on their own. So they asked us to kind of work through this backwards, and that's what we're going to do. let me find strategy 6 here. So as Andrea, when she walked through the presentation, talked about how there's goals and objectives and then specific strategies, how the things that you would want to see changed as part of the comp plan. And so these are just some of the strategies as for discussion points tonight. And then with that, what does that mean, or like trade-offs? And as Henry pointed out, like, so, okay, if we're not happy with development on septic or something like that, or we want to see more open space, that's one of the strategies listed. What does that mean for as far as a trade-off? It may mean higher taxes, things, or impact fees. So this one is specific to traffic, and I might need to explain it a little bit. It's a little some of the technical jargon here, but it says adjust traffic road performance measures to include transit, walking, bicycling, and quality, LOS meaning level of service, for the overall corridor performance, as opposed to individual traffic signal car turning movement delays. So there's a lot in there to digest. So I'll do a little bit, hopefully, a better description to help with that. So currently the code says in order for someone to receive approval for new development, the traffic must function at an acceptable level of service. And the way we measure that in the code today is through, we look at a specific intersection and a certain amount of intersections out from the development and through DelDOT, and they say, okay, how fast is it? How long do you have to wait at that intersection to either go straight through it or make a turning movement? What is the delay at that intersection? And it's in a matter of seconds, and those delays, it's measured, and that's how the performance is measured. So what we're asking is there a better way to look at that? Today, maybe a single left turn at an intersection takes you 2 light cycles. Or is there better ways to measure things by saying, okay, well, if we incorporate transit into this community, we have appropriate bike trails and walking, and we look at the overall time that maybe it takes to get through a corridor from, through a complete corridor as opposed to measuring a single turning movement. Is that a better way of doing things? So hopefully that helps a little bit with the descriptive side of this. But so the first kind of trade-off question is, with doing this and looking at it differently, does it create an easier, safer walking community, or is the preference that we would prefer to have additional lanes, additional turning lanes, and make it easier to drive? It's not always easy to incorporate both. I think that's where the discussion comes in, is that how do we try to create that balance? And in times we can, but adding lanes or turning movements doesn't always allow for opportunity to have appropriate sidewalks and bikes, room for bikes and other things. So anybody want to kind of kick off discussion with that? You can go a little bit in any direction you want with it, certainly, because it's more important that we just kind of talk through this tonight. We don't have to stay strict within this survey. You'll have time to do it on your own, certainly.
I'm so sorry to interrupt this way, because I know you've done so much planning, and it's so hard to lead a group, and you're doing a really, really, really great job. I just think that wouldn't it depend on the terrain that you're talking about?
It can, absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
So
it depends on the size road, the network, how much traffic it's intended to handle.
Yeah.
And so you look at a situation like a Route 40, right? That area, or it's intended to move cars through, right? So it may not always be preferential treatment to say that the pedestrian has the right over cars, and that's on a major corridor. Although we want it to be certainly safe and maybe have side paths for bikes to travel and all, but then you go to I'll go to an extreme different example, Main Street, Newark, right? So the pedestrian is king on Main Street. Right. It's not as important for the cars to go fast down Main Street as it is to provide safety for the pedestrians with the experience that eat at the restaurants and all there. So I guess that's certainly the balance. That's a good point.
Yeah. So if you're, if you're looking in the future, shouldn't, this is, sorry, it's a rhetorical question, but I'm thinking out loud. Shouldn't you be seeing that the present is adequate first in each area? And then saying, what does the area look like? And if we develop in thus and so ways, we should make these changes in advance. I mean, let me say, I appreciate the gesture of thinking forward, because everyone who's in a highly developed area where the infrastructure has not caught up is saying, why didn't you do this first? You know, so it's kind of ironic that at the same time it's like, but before you do that, can you look at the specific, each of the specific purple areas and say, and talk to each of the specific community organizations and HOAs that are there and say, hey, tell us about the terrain, tell us about the driving. What do you think would be good based on what is happening now and what is already permitted to go in? Do you think you've got the, you know, infrastructure for that? Would you want your roads to be wider? Like Old County, it would be great if the roads were wider, because this road is so narrow and there's so many accidents on it, and it's a pass through between Maryland and Delaware, and you know, to Route 40 to 896. But on the other hand, that would cut into people's yards. But now we have to kind of talk about that, because there are, again, four developments that are, you know, with hundreds of people in each development, and then the Glasgow shopping as one of the four, which is, you know, so I'm just kind of like, and I'm sorry, again, I don't mean to upend this. I like the question and I like the planning for the future, but I'm just kind of wondering if maybe if you're talking about these purple areas, you should actually say, all the people from the Middletown area, talk to me about the different, you know, different major arteries that you think would be affected by future development. And do you think they should have wider shoulders or more walking for the pedestrian? So I'm just going to say that. I apologize if I'm throwing things off for you that
No,
way.
absolutely not. It's not intended to be that structured of a discussion. I think that people can do the survey on their own. I think it just everybody, they kind of get out there and have an opportunity to speak.
Okay.
I'll also make one comment, and then I'll hopefully some other people that haven't had a chance to speak will jump in. So coming off of the Old County Road, then, so the old 896 section, right? So if you go to school at the technical school there, or if you live in the immediate area, you certainly currently you wouldn't feel safe necessarily riding a bike to the retail center, to People Plaza, right? So maybe, you know, if it was a safer situation, and maybe they say, okay, well, we don't want 2 lanes in each direction to accommodate traffic and make traffic go faster because we just want to get them through. Maybe traffic slows down because that's more appropriate, and we provide 8-foot bike lanes lined by trees so the bicyclists feel safe and they can get to the center to buy, and then maybe cut down on traffic. I don't know, but either way. But anybody who want to jump in? I know Bob Weiner has some experience with this, or Jerry has her hand up. Go ahead, Jerry.
Hi. Again, I think there are 2 things happening with your question. This proposed strategy number 6 question. I just want to look at the question itself, and
Am I blocking it?
No, I just want to respond to the question, because I think the way the question is phrased, you're going to be missing important information. And I also think, once again, it's framed in what I'm going to call a very traditional way. So we know, for example, in very high density cities, Amsterdam, for example, there are technologies that now exist, smart technologies that can make decisions based on traffic flow with a variety of pedestrians, bicycles, and cars. And that this question assumes that the technology hasn't changed, and we have to always, you know, pre-plan our light changes based on old data collection. So I think the question itself and the way you're getting input from people needs to be examined, frankly. I think that needs to be brought up to speed. And the second goes back to what you're saying about, I think, frankly, there needs to be a bigger question that's being asked about what do we mean by development. I mean, I'm seeing very traditional assumptions. You just brought up a really good point. Maybe you want to have slower traffic and more lanes because you want the population to start to use bicycles. And those bicycles could be used if we have more local, for example, grocery stores. So I just want to say that I think the framing of these questions and the framing of the planning needs to be actually looked at.
Good. Any,
Yeah, I'll just butt in here a
Grace.
little bit too, because this is actually kind of right in line with what I do as my job. So I am a traffic engineer, so I do look at level of service. I do look at traffic operations. I do look at the data collection, the advanced technologies in data collection. And I think as far as operations of an area, you got to look at what the context of the area is. Like center cities, you're going to be okay with unacceptable delays because that's just how it is. But when you go out into more rural areas, anything that's more than 30, 40 seconds, you're not going to be like that because you're going to want to be a little faster. But you got to have a kind of a trade-off between acceptable operations versus multimodal aspects of the area, giving more pedestrian, more bicycle, more transit. You got to have a trade-off between the two because it's not like it was 20, 30, 40 years ago when it was all automobile. Now it is more multi-use. So we're not looking at making everything bigger, better. We're looking at making things smarter and kind of, narrowing it down to what you do need now, what you could need in the future, but also looking at what future technologies are coming in. For instance, the autonomous vehicles are coming in. You're not going to need the 4 or 5 lane corridors when that comes in the future because you're just not going to need that much space. You can be smarter about your developments and your infrastructure.
Thank you, Teresa. Bob has his hand raised.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate the comments that have been made. I believe that we are on the right track to be planning for having a compact, walkable mixed-use development in the corridors where we have already a mix of uses, where we have opportunities for employment. We no longer need to segregate where we live, shop, work, and play. Where we have transit opportunities, we need to take a look at the opportunity of even using LOSE, which is actually more effective in moving traffic. And it enables, as you said, Anthony, to enable the citizen to be viewed, pedestrian to be viewed as the king or queen, and cars are welcome but second-class citizens. And if we continue to densify the opportunities for mixed-use development, we'll be able to preserve open space. It's a trade-off. So the corridors that have been identified in the 2050 plan actually fulfill that vision. And it's having participated in these workshops since the 1980s, I recognize that there's always a competition between those that would rather just speed to get some other place, rather than recognizing that those that live on that road see themselves as a place, and we need to be placemakers and reflect the sentiments of those folks.
Great, thank you so much. Do you want to take we're running out of time quickly, but do you want to take a look quick at another question? And just a reminder that, and this one leads a little bit into the what Henry had brought up. But just a quick reminder that you're going to get the links for this. You'll be able to go in and fill it out on your own. And once you do go in there, just block out enough time that you can finish and save it so it's included. But so strategy 5, simple purchase of land or land development rights through grants, tax referendums, impact fees. And then so trade-off. So A, the result would be more protected, preserved land. B, as Henry pointed out, that he said the quote, we buck up and we're going to have to pay, but it's still higher taxes or less county spending on something else. Maybe something else that doesn't become the priority then if land preservation is because, right, you can't necessarily always do it all. Anybody want to jump on this one?
I'm not sure I understand what the question here is. Are you saying
Sure.
either or you're going to have both? I mean, I think you would have both.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's saying, oh, go ahead, Joan. I didn't. Oh, I think you got muted by accident.
I was trying to get my husband to stop running water. Because to me, if I want more protected, preserved land, I have to have higher taxes or less county spending. So I don't understand. I don't understand the question either.
I think what we're saying is that viewing it as a trade-off, and that if either, maybe that is structured wrong, right? So it's maybe because it's if you want the.
Yeah, I have a feeling that one is trade-off one is.
Yeah, right. Because
an oversight.
Yeah, because they kind of go together. The A goes with the B.
So I think they mean lower taxes and more county spending on other areas.
Let's look at it as let's discuss it that way. You're right, Steve. Good for pointing that out. Yeah, so either more protected lands, or in that case, if the trade-off would be different. If you don't want more protected lands, would be the opposite of maybe you would pay less in taxes than.
Structured like that.
I'd like to say something here.
Yeah,
I know our population growth, well, for number one, we're getting older. So some of these bicycle lanes and things like that are, older populations, bicycle further. I know I'm 10 miles to my grocery store. That's too far for me to bike. On the tax things, most of your increased population are people coming here from high tax states to retire here so they can live cheaper. That's it.
Looks like we're going to be brought back to the main group in under a minute here. Anybody have any kind of last words they want to get on the record?
I just want to say thank you. You have a really hard job, and a couple of us are here because we're fighting development, so we don't want to talk about more development. So we can't think about a future that's because we're too stuck in the present. So sorry about that. But
yeah, and I appreciate you coming and showing up. I think it's always good to have a diverse opinion on things. And real quickly, so the Southern Newcastle County Plan, as mentioned, will be at the Planning Board in September with the other community area plans. So I encourage you to show up and continue the discussion there.
Carter's going to be there, the Southern Plan.